2022. What a year for games. Seriously, how did so many good games come out in just 1 year? Whittling down to a mere 10 was tough. Getting around to even playing all the ones everybody was talking about was hard enough. Yet, here we are. I survived. No, please, save your applause for later. While selecting just 10 games was difficult, I am confident that each of these is absolutely worth your time. They're all doing something a little different, and all excelling at it. They all fought for my time this year, even if I did give a fair chunk of that time to Hunt Showdown. Which, hey, that's still the best ongoing game. 2 years running. If Crytek keep adding spooky ladies to this, then, well, I will keep playing. In fact, here, quickly, is my top 10 spooky ladies. Number 10, I wear my sunglasses at night. Number 9, when you have to shoot, shoot. Number 8, uptight but can fight. 7, goth girlfriend. 6, swamp witch. 5, wolf mother. 4, skull women. 3, 2 guns, double the fun. 2, killer nun. 1, skull owl. Okay, I guess now we can get on to the year's actual, proper, real, I swear to God, top 10 video games. Remember game manuals? There used to be these little companions to guide you through a game, filled with extra information and secrets. The decline of physical media also meant the decline of game manuals until today, where most plastic cases don't even come with a fucking disc. Anyway, Tunic remembers game manuals and has done an admirable job implementing them, having you scour the world to unlock it, one page at a time. But this is more than nostalgia. This is about reviving an inventive tradition and offering it up to a whole new generation. The act of discovering how to play becomes the game, rather than simply chasing after upgrades and powers. In doing so, Tunic provides a small sense of wonder that's rare to find in games, where so much of the experience now is about plonking players on treadmills to well-catalogued goals. Tunic prefers taking players off the main road and down into a nice little shaded glen. It's not without challenge or difficulty, but there's an undeniable chilled out vibe to the whole game. Basically, Tunic is just kind of lovely. Whether you're a millennial with fond memories of old school Zelda, or someone who's never known the joy of those games, then Tunic offers up that kind of magic in spades. I adored the previous 2 Frog Detective games. So expectations were, naturally, quite high. But fear not, because Frog Detective 3 is well good. These absurdist comedy games fill a space games seldom do. Most games attempting to be funny rely on banter. But Frog Detective 3 is so good at setups and payoffs, in dialogue or in the visuals or mechanics, it revels in the irreverent. Every character you meet feels like an exercise in a completely different kind of joke. Rounded Dynamite is my favourite. I mean, besides Frog Detective. If there was one thing we all needed more of in 2022, it was joy. And there was no game with as much of it made so potently as Frog Detective 3. Corruption at Cowboy County. Far Lone Sails was a favourite back in 2018, and I was so delighted to see a sequel announced. Arriving early in 2022, I worry it's been criminally overlooked, which is a shame for a game so bursting with craft. Changing Tides gives you a ship/submersible to cross beautiful rolling landscapes in the wake of an environmental apocalypse. And what a wonderfully tactile toy box it is. Every instrument to keep it running, whether it be the sails or the engine, is operated with crunchy buttons or stretchy levers. If you got a miniature of this thing as a kid, it would be your favourite toy ever. Keeping it going is an act of playfulness, riding out the end of the world on an engine of fun. But there's melancholy to its world too. I think a lot about a little potted plant I found at the game's start. Every object you find, you see, can be used as fuel. And should things get too rough, you may need to sacrifice precious cargo. But not that plant. It was my companion to the very edge of the world. This game is full of joy, atmosphere, and plenty of surprises. Play it and be delighted. Fast Shark's run of Left 4 Dead inspired melee crowd fighters have gone from strength to strength, but with Darktide it feels more like a lateral move, which isn't a criticism. Rather than just Vermintide 2, but more, with a change to the grim dark future setting of Warhammer 40k, Darktide is aiming to do things differently. Whether that's player-created characters or implementing guns into a more central role, Darktide is an alternative experience, not a replacement, which is not to say it doesn't do some things better. Despite the new emphasis on shooting, hacking and slashing is more nuanced than it was in Vermintide, with more chances for players to claw their way out of a bad situation. And that's really the heart of Darktide. Those moments where it's you and some friends back against the wall and the universe's ugliest monsters want to mess you up. You play for the moment where one heroic player survives a last stand to revive the team, or when everyone synergizes perfectly to take down a huge beast in record time. Darktide has already become a staple evening habit with friends, and I expect it to stay that way for the foreseeable, grim, dark future.
Bye.
As near perfect an execution as you could hope for with the simple premise of blood sport where people on skates shoot each other. It's a lean game with little faff, even its narrative moments are brief, though potent, and transitions so seamlessly into action. This is a game all about style, where you're here to perform, not just mow down enemies. That means attacking only after a trick or a dramatic dodge, doing a backflip through a hail of gunfire, because survival isn't enough. You gotta look good while you do it. I lost more than a few days this year to chasing leaderboards, but it was never a frustrating exercise. Rollerdrome really excels at making the process of improvement enjoyable, partly because it just feels so satisfying to skate and shoot, and this is a story all about losing yourself in the pursuit of greater heights. Kara Hassan, the protagonist, lusts after the top spot, even as Parabar is aware of the folly in giving this bloodthirsty audience what it wants. But whatever, I am gonna get that S rank. Screw the hairs. Elden Ring felt less like a game and more like an honest-to-God event. So many were not only playing it, but talking about it, actively engaging in every aspect of it, from its story to its themes, to tips and community aspects. People were chatting about Malenia for months, a legendary fight that for better or worse defined the game in numerous ways. There were all sorts of player antics going on, organic mischief you'd be hard-pressed to find in many other mainstream games. It felt alive. a party everyone showed up for, guiding each newcomer around the various attractions or pulling pranks to hinder them. The bones of it were built on everything From Software has spent the last decade doing, and so those fundamentals are incredibly strong. It's a bigger, more sprawling sequel that honestly feels lesser than its predecessors, which were tighter and more focused. The sheer scale of it easily made it the game I played most this year. There was always more to see, more to try, more people to help. It sucked up months of my year as I got wrapped up in its gorgeous world and delightful combat. And to its credit, despite the absurd amount of time I already put into it, it left me wanting more. To see more corners of this expansive universe with my batch of characters, to meet more of its strange NPCs, and to have more excuses to fight side by side with my friends. No game felt bigger in 2022, and whatever flaws I can pick out in it, I'm still awestruck by this titan. This game is kinda basically my job. Like, this is literally a sort of simplified version of what I'm doing right now to construct this very Game of the Year video. And despite reminding me of work, I loved it. You're not making a new work out of the clips presented to the viewer, but from these 3 films, you are discovering moments and building a narrative. You're finding the story. Sometimes that is what editing is. Searching for the right moment, getting rid of the ones that don't work. Except in Immortality, you're analysing each scene for details that connect them to other scenes. You navigate the game through comparison and similarity of meaning. In that sense, some of what you're doing is critique. You're literally asked to find the meaning in the 3 cut-up films presented to you. Narrative is the mechanic of the game itself. In terms of what you're doing, it's exceedingly simple. Click on a bottle, be shown another scene of a bottle. Piece together a story as you go. Yet as a technical exercise, the amount of planning and pre-production that must have went into this to allow 3 whole films to be broken down and still tell both their individual stories and a larger story about the actors and crew involved. Because you don't just get the actual films. Some scenes are the rehearsals or the creatives throwing ideas around. None of them are just films. And the more I played, it began to remind me of Return of the Obra Dinn, a mystery game with a seemingly straightforward story that soon reveals itself to be something far stranger. If Immortality had just been about learning the fascinating history behind these films and the career of its central actress, it would still be good. But the more you watch, the more apparent it is that something else is going on within these films and their production. Small instances of unprofessional behaviour soon begin to hold the promise of something more. And each film is itself a telling of an even larger idea. I couldn't pull myself away once I started looking. Immortality is the kind of game that gets under your skin and doesn't let go until it's part of you. Norco shows you something ugly and finds beauty in it. It isn't the first time I've felt drawn to Southern Gothic works, whose tales capture the decline of the United States South in a way that has its similarities to the post-industrial devastation I grew up around in Scotland. A shot of an overgrown oil refinery swallowing up the bayou evokes Blade Runner's iconic opening, but I couldn't tell you whether that was a deliberate choice or just a case of life imitating art, as Norco depicts, in its own way, the very real monsters of Louisiana. The dystopia that has been imagined and fetishized for so long is now here, merely a stone's throw away. I spent my childhood exploring abandoned factories, hospitals and railway lines, playing near power stations or in the shadow of industrial gas storage. And so despite being so many miles away, Norco feels not unlike home to me. And you don't exist in Norco's landscape as a blank slate. In the role of Kay, you're a former resident turned drifter now returning home. As much as you, the player, are poking around town, you're also rummaging around in Kay's memories, choosing how to frame her past. Scarred from calamities caused by climate change, economic collapse and recession, corporate destruction, every personal tragedy is a result of a world left utterly broken. A place soon to be flooded one last time and forgotten, the game tells us prophetically. Norco feels rawer than many of the other games that wish to tackle a world in decline, whether that's the bloated genre works like Cyberpunk 2077, or even those far more considered, such as Kentucky Route Zero. Norco's wounds feel fresh. There's pain and anger, a frustration in the face of helplessness. Community is fraught. How do people cope when the world seems to be ending around them? Not well, it turns out. Yet that doesn't make them less deserving of love and kindness. Compassion bleeds through the despair and the rage. Norco paints a gloomy portrait of our present, rooted in a very specific place, and for me, it's hauntingly familiar. If Devil Daggers was the distillation of everything I loved about Doom or Quake, crafted into its purest essence, then Hyperdemon transcends its influences altogether. This follow-up to the horror shoot-'em-up where the longer you survive, the higher your score, throws away that old scheme, and instead, you gain score by simply how devastating you can be in as short a time as possible. You can reach a high score in seconds, so long as you kick enough ass. And kicking ass looks like doing battle along the event horizon of a black hole, twisting light and space around yourself to fend off nightmares from the beyond. There are tutorials, but so much of what you learn is through play, realizing that every little audio cue and visual effect is a clue towards new skills and tricks. Unraveling the cosmic action mystery of it is exhilarating and exquisite like nothing else. A game of singular focus and supreme execution. The kind of game I can't even imagine conceiving of, at least not in this way. One that once I get in the zone with, it's devilishly difficult to put down. Don't give up, don't stop learning, and don't forget, you're not locked in with these monsters. They're locked in here with you. You are the Hyperdemon. No game in 2022 has stayed with me quite like Signalis, a disturbing puzzle box that outright refuses to have its pieces neatly put together. Instead, this retro-styled survival horror revels in ambiguity and subversion, slowly leading you into a strange sci-fi world before making you question what is and isn't real. As android Elster, you're on a mission to find the woman she loves and uphold a promise to her. Nothing else matters. And the game, through its labyrinthian facility, questions the cost and toll of that resolve in the face of a world threatening to devour everything within it. Moment to moment, it's engaging as hell, employing classic Resident Evil style resource management to build tension, but smartly breaking from that template, unraveling the security of the familiar until Signalis becomes something far stranger than many of its influences. It will establish a logic only so it can break it, undermining what felt solid. Every small mechanic and UI choice pays off somewhere, from the radio puzzles to even the main menu or save screens. It's so tightly constructed, and every part, however seemingly insignificant, is working towards the larger story. Yet it keeps you tethered through its extraordinary visuals and music. anchoring everything that transpires in references and technology that put some familiar ground beneath your feet. This is a world built on VHS tapes and floppy disks, tethering the future to the past, both doomed to obsolescence. Making sense of it requires thinking a lot less literally about its events and sights and sounds. So Signalis refuses to be neatly resolved and packed away. It intends to haunt and captivate long after the credits roll. What peace is there in a world like this? What closure can there be when confronted with all this horror? Elsa has already made her choice. The rest is for you to decide.
Achtung! 0, 3, 2, 4, 6, Steuerung 1, 6, 3, 8, 1, 4, 6, Steuerung 1, 4, 7, 5, 1, 5, 3, Steuerung 4.
Hey, thank you for watching. This is my last video of 2022, but there'll be Subtext Adventure and more to come in 2023. Speaking of, I suppose we could have a peek at the games coming next year that I have my eye on. But first, I want to give an extra special thanks to my patrons. 2022 has not been an easy year for me, but your support has made so much possible. I will never stop being grateful to you all. Yous are the best. And if you don't already support me and like what I do, please join my Patreon. Every little helps, and you get videos and articles early, as well as getting to vote on upcoming streams. Okay, I'll leave you now with some of the games I'm looking forward to in 2023. Take care, see you then.